Tim Means taking on Max Griffin. Max Griffin, I think, is minus 175. Tim Means plus 150. It seems like every single fight is lined around this minus 175 spot here. Kev, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was watching tape on Griffin last night, and quite frankly, watching some of his early fights to his previous fights, it seems like he's shown a lot of evolution with his cardio, just the way he's able to kind of go into the flow on the feet. He just seems a little bit more sound defensively. He's not getting clipped like he was earlier in his career. Guy in Tim Means, the dirty bird, right? The bona fide journeyman of the UFC, man. I mean, talk about a veteran, right? 48 UFC fights, 48 MMA fights, 26 UFC fights. The man is an absolute veteran of the sport. Just super gritty. I think that if Tim Means has a shot here, he's going to have to utilize those takedowns. We did see some evidence of that versus the Kevin Holland fight. He did land a few takedowns there. So definitely something inspiring to see. But a guy in Griffin, man, I mean, he hits incredibly hard. He has that like stiff right jab. Like he can literally just knock someone down with just like a clean jab right then and there. I believe he's training with Fluffy Hernandez, if I'm not mistaken, Griffin. I think that's his main training partner. If anybody can certify that. But, Griffin does have like a really sneaky, like low leg kick. And I think that'll definitely be here in this spot. I honestly like Griffin to knock out Tim Means here. Tim Means is on the tail end of his career. Griffin is still hungry. He's shown, that he belongs in the UFC. Mind you, he's 35, 36, but he seems to be like in pretty good shape. He seems to be like a younger 36er. So
I was surprised when I saw he was only that he was 36.
Right. But like, I know you guys have seen, man, like once Griffin really gets in that rhythm and he feels that confidence in there, man, he looks really good. And quite frankly, I think that he'll be able to absorb those takedowns and keep this fight standing. And, for that reason, I like Griffin in this spot. Last I looked, it was minus 180 from minus 170. Of course, we don't have anything locked in for the KP. Personally, I just feel as though that it's a great parlay piece. Don't really like this line taking it straight up for some reason. But Griffin should get the job done here.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. I'm with you on this. I think Max really has found himself as a fighter. He was a late bloomer. I was also shocked that he was 36. And yes, also you're right. He is training with Fluffy Hernandez from that camp. He was 3-6 in his first 9, Max Griffin in the UFC, and then he's 3-1 in his last 4, arguably 4-0 with that Magny fight. He's got really big power. And Tim Means' last fight against Holland, Holland's speed advantage was gross there, and that's the reason he ultimately finished him. But he was hurt multiple times in that fight, and that's what led to him getting caught in that Darce trip. And with a guy like Max, who I call him a big gut type of guy, if you know what I mean, he's got that power. He's got power coming from everywhere, and he's going to kick your calf to blend in, to get you thinking about that, and then he's going to knock you out with his hands. And like you said, I like Max Griffin here. I have him to finish being 35%, him to win only being 60%, because I do see Tim Means being a grinder and being able to grind on him if he can get inside and can get Max on the cage in a clinch. So I just played, I had a half unit plus 240 Max finish.
Yeah, Griffin is. I like your take on him being a late bloomer, because I think that's exactly what he is. He's one of these guys that seems to always get sucked into these like these crazy wars, and it's like at one point it was like this guy can't catch a break in UFC. He was just losing, close decision after close decision. That fight against Neil Magny, he really impressed me, and some can make a case that he actually won the first 2 rounds of that fight. Definitely won the first. The second was a bit of a toss-up, and then the third, Magny came in and grappled him, and kind of solidified that W. But close fight, he was able to drop Magny in the first, and Magny being the longer fighter, Griffin was actually outlanding him at distance at a point, and that's I think going to be the difference here. Like Griffin has a really long reach. He'll be at a height disadvantage here, but he uses that right hand really well in and both down the pipe and to the body. I mean, I think Griffin is going to be definitely the moment winner here. He'll be the harder hitter. It's just going to be a question of if he can, make Tim Means kind of just back off a little bit. Tim Means is going to trying to get in his face, clinch, elbows, and really just turn into a duck fight. Griffin knows how to, fight in those too, but I think where he's strongest at is when he's moving laterally and kind of sticking and moving. He's going to be the better athlete in there. And I lean Griffin here. I think the Magny fight was an interesting one for me because I actually had Griffin in that fight. I placed a bet on him just because I thought it was value at plus money. I think he got like plus 230 on him, and
Yeah, I
it
think
was
I had him too
value.
in that spot.
It was value. I mean, if you bet plus 3.5, you would have cashed that ticket. He won one round on 2 of the judges' scorecards and 2 on one of them. So it was an interesting spot, and I see this as being kind of a reward for taking a tough guy and Neil Magny to the distance. And I like Griffin here. I'll definitely have a straight up play against him. I like him as a parlay piece here too. But I think Tim Means is guys that he seems to be capped fairly accurate by the market. He's cashed a couple dog tickets, but for the most part, he wins when he's supposed to win. He loses when he's supposed to lose. And I think a fight like this, he's going to be giving up the power. He's going to be giving up the speed to Griffin. And again, from an athleticism standpoint, I think Means' only shot, in my opinion, here is a 3-round kind of grinding victory where he's just kind of in Griffin's face the whole time. So if Griffin can keep moving, not kind of stay stationary and land that power right, I think he should be able to. I think even get Tim Means out of there. Like, he has big power.
Yeah, I think it's funny that I believe we're all in agreement here that the longer fighter, his better chance here is within close range, right? I think Tim Means, if he could keep this within the clinch or, just within elbow range, that's where he's going to win, because that's where we've seen Griffin struggle, right? Griffin likes to keep it at distance. He likes to strike, likes to get his strikes off, get out of the way. Tim Means, you made a good point, Dan. He beats who he's supposed to beat, right? And he loses who he's supposed to lose. So he does a very good job beating up lesser competition. I mean, not to take anything away from them. Nicholas Dalby, his last one before Holland, he's like a shell of himself lately. Especially that fight, he was not in good shape for that fight. Mike Perry, who was on the out and out, Laureano Staropoli, just his last 3 wins really against guys he should beat, right? And Max Griffin, he's fighting guys like Neil Magny. Neil Magny's fighting guys like Shavkat, right? So you got to put some context into that. And I agree with everything you guys have said. I like Max Griffin here. We've seen Tim Means get hurt in the Holland fight, in the D-Rod fight. He got knocked out by Nico Price. So, I think that there's chances for Griffin to get a knockout win here. But at minus 175, I actually like Griffin at that line.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, just to give a little contradicting opinion here. I mean, Tim Means has landed a takedown in 6 of 8 fights, right? So that's definitely something that you want to see in an underdog. With Tim Means, 26 UFC fights, he's only been knocked out once. So, clearly the guy is incredibly tough. Am I confident that Griffin is going to get this knockout? Absolutely not. But it just does seem like that marquee matchup where you have a guy kind of on the uprise, even though he's already 36, he still has a bright future in the UFC versus a guy in Means who's really kind of on that way out. So just thought I'd just put that in there for perspective. But, I do agree with you, Dan. I think that if this hits the 3rd round, I think it's definitely time to sweat. Because you have a guy in Tim Means who's just such a gritty veteran, man. And man, we could really see a 1-1 going into the 3rd, or look, when Max Griffin fought Neil Magny, man, in that 3rd round, a lot of red flags. Just the way that I don't want to say that he was gassed, but he was just getting controlled. He was getting ragdolled, man. I mean, and look, it is what it is, but it is just something to consider here. So I do have a little bit of hesitation taking this straight up, but. I think it's a pretty safe parlay piece here.
Yeah, we've seen Magny do that to a lot of people, though. He has some very, very solid grappling. Pushes a good pace. That's make a case for Means. I mean, that's how you beat a guy like Griffin. You may start slow, but as the fight, once it starts to look a little bit dirty, right? I mean, not as clean. Griffin likes that clean striking match where he can land power shots, but. Once you start kind of really turning this into a war, I mean, we've seen him fumble the ball a couple times. So that's definitely the path here. So yeah, I mean, Means is definitely live here. I just think Griffin, again, a spot that he should win. It's kind of his fight to lose, if you will.